Welcome to Monster Men.
Arr, how you doing there, Jackie?
Arr, we're good.
By the way, we're elevating the show tonight because we're going to talk about elevated horror with the great author Chad Lutzke. How you doing, Chad?
I'm doing great, guys. Thanks for having me on.
By the way, I just recently purchased the Night Owl.
Neon Owl?
The best part of Neon. Did I say the Night?
Yeah, that's okay.
We recorded a show before this, and I've been drinking since. So, what do you think is what's your premiere book you think that me or anyone should buy as like the intro to Chad Lutzke?
Probably either Foster Homes and Flies or Stirring the Sheets.
Stirring the Sheets, I love the cover of that.
Yeah, that was a UK artist, and it was just a painting that I found. It's not the whole painting; it's most of it. And when I saw it, I thought I gotta have that, man. That's like perfect for the book. And so I reached out to him, and he was really cool about it. And he said, "Yeah, go ahead and use it for free. Just send me a copy of the book." So I did, and he read it, and his wife read it, and he's like, "Man, I can see why you wanted this. It's like this painting was made for this book."
Wow.
Whenever I see that painting, I think of a Tool video.
Oh yeah.
And there's something about it.
He sent me a really nice high quality print too in the mail of the original painting.
That's awesome. And I saw somebody just did art with you with like flies making up your beard.
Yeah. That's cool.
You're hooked into the art world, dude.
Some Russian guy just read up Foster Homes and Flies and tagged me on Instagram and was drawing that, and he finished it today, and it's so cool.
It's a great picture. I mean, really, awesome job. So you're gonna, like I said, you're elevating the show because you want to. Now, when you first said you want to do elevator horror, I said, "What are we going to talk about? The Lift and Devil? Like, how much can we talk about those two movies?" No, it's not that at all. It's not horror.
Elevators.
Elevated. So you had hinted before the show that you have a lot to talk about on this. And we are here to give you voice, to say what you need to say. And also, we'll throw things in that will make no sense whatsoever, and then you can get us back on track.
All right. We'll just bounce back and forth.
Exactly.
I don't know that I have a lot to say as much as I have a strong opinion about the title. And I guess for me, I don't... I picked the topic because of that, and because I thought it would make for a good discussion, especially if we differ in opinion or whatever. But I don't quite understand the title, because to me, it's like elevated horror, like films like I guess like The Witch and Hereditary and Get Out and It Follows, Babadook, Goodnight Mommy. I mean, there's a whole bunch of them. To me, it's just a term for modern, original, well-told, intelligent movies. Because I mean, we're constantly remaking stuff. We got Star Trek, Star Wars, and superheroes, and in the movie theater, just constantly, and just regurgitating these same ideas. So when somebody has an original idea, which they often did in the 70s. You know, I think a lot of those movies that came out back then, stuff like maybe The Brood or The Shining. I think if those came out today, those might be considered elevated horror, just because they're original ideas. And it just bothers me that we have that term for at least that's my view on it. I understand that they're more kind of like psychological, but the two common like denominators for me for something that someone might call elevated horrors, for one, they don't spoon feed you anything, which I absolutely love, because I can't stand being spoon fed unless it's something I'm watching for nostalgic reasons. You know, I like really bad movies too, Blood Rage and just bad slasher, Microwave Massacre, and just bad slashers that just like comfort food, you know, and
Microwave Massacre.
Yeah,
you gotta
it's
make
a bad
room
one.
for May. That's such
a yeah. The acting is about as bad as you can get. So is the dialogue, but you know, for someone my age that kind of grew up like going into those video stores and seeing those on the shelf like every time that you went. And I mean, it really has like a lot of nostalgia attached to it. And so I do like those, but I don't know. I just I think that it's I think it's almost kind of sad that we even have this title for something that to me is just original storytelling that doesn't spoon feed, sometimes has some ambiguity to it. And you know, and like I said, I think they did that a lot in the 70s. I think I don't know if The Exorcist would be considered elevated horror, except for the scene where she's levitating, I guess. But you know, just total originality back then.
Well, I just watched that documentary In Search of Darkness about the 80s horror.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe Bob Briggs said, he goes, back in the 80s, everybody was coming up with new ideas and trying new things. And nowadays, everybody's just doing remakes of things.
Yeah.
You know, I think when I heard we were going to talk elevated horror, my first instinct was, oh, that's like what they call good horror movies, or like horror movies that are also good movies. So like people like us, I love Hereditary, but you're right. I also love schlocky. I just watched Mother of Tears. It's a schlocky, stupid movie. Yeah. But I was, you know, there's like different levels of like,
absolutely.
Yeah, this is, you know, so for me, like the elevated horror is like, I think you're exactly right. The Shining is an elevated horror movie because it's a great movie. It makes you think. But I also think like the other edge of the knife with elevated horror is sometimes it's like the general public is a little more accessible to them. Sometimes like the Jordan Peele stuff, everybody will consider like elevated horror because non-horror fans are gravitating towards it or something. And that's where I start to think like they're starting to misuse this word a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, man.
I think, I don't know what I prefer, because I think most what we're categorizing as elevated horror, a lot of people are used to call slow burn. Like the Black Coat's Daughter and things like first of all, I hate the term slow burn. I'm like, I'm sorry that we're trying to build a world and a set of characters to like punch you in your pineal gland in the third act. But, you know, sometimes it needs to be done. We can't always have the rat going at your crotch from the first scene and you're covered in rats. You have to build something. So it's weird. I understand the concept of elevated horror, and you're right. It's about well-conceived, well-written, well-performed horror, which is above, like, say, I can even go with my stuff. Rattus New Yorkus is not in the same category as Creature. You know, one is about, or Jurassic Florida. They're just straight up B-movie monster fun romps. Creature, despite its name, would be considered a slow burn type of, and it's more than what you think it is. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if I mind the fact that it's elevated horror. I agree. The 70s, they were trying everything. And to me, the 70s was the greatest decade of filmmaking of all time. Yeah. No matter what genre you want to go in. I think, look, if you and I had a bunch of movies in this decade that were called, elevated horror, I think we'd both be pretty proud of ourselves. Mm-hmm. You're like, yeah, that's right, man. I wrote that shit. And it's really good. And it's really intelligent. But this whole world is about categories and micro categories. I've just gotten so used to it at this point. But the funny thing is, if I hear elevated horror, that like rings a bell in me really fast. I'm like, I got to see that. Like I can almost wait for the B movie or the monster movie as much as I love them. But the elevated horror, I feel like I have to see that fast before I hear too much about it, and it ruins it for me.
There's a blurred line though, that you named a bunch of movies that I could totally see labeling as elevated horror, and then a couple of them though I'm like, wait, is that like It Follows? I'm like, is that elevated horror or not? Like The Lodge, is that elevated horror or is that just a unique horror?
Are these other names for independent horror? I mean, we're naming all these pretty independent movies.
That's how I used to look at it, because I prefer out of any genre, comedy, romance, drama, horror, I prefer indie because I think they're more creative. They take more chances. And with the exception of the B movie stuff, man, it's, oftentimes the acting is superior to some of the stuff that big blockbuster stuff. You know, some of the movies that like the Duplass brothers put out, or like A24, or you know, there's just it to me it's so much better than. So when I think of like indie, like modern indie horror, it usually falls, you know, you're right, it usually falls into that category of elevated horror because they're taking more chances, I guess.
Yeah, A24 to me is like, if they put something out and it's horror, I'm in. Like Raw was one of my favorite movies of the last 20 years.
I'll tell you what, though, I take two filmmakers that I really like a lot right now, Ari Aster and Mike Flanagan. I think almost everything I've seen from Ari Aster I would consider elevated horror, and Mike Flanagan I think are tremendous movies, but I don't know if I put them in elevated horror. Like Doctor Sleep I don't consider elevated horror, but I think it's a great movie. Like whereas
I think because it's more accessible.
It's a little more mainstream. Yeah.
Maybe that's it. Because Midsommar, my God, like I love that movie, but it's not accessible. Although I know a lot of like normies that watched it and enjoyed it, but like you walk out of the movie like, what the hell did I just watch?
Yeah.
Tell them to watch the director's cut, and we'll see what they think. Have you seen it, Chad? It's like 3.5 hours.
Yeah. No, not the director's cut. I don't think I have. No.
Yeah, 3.5 hours. I was at the movie theater and I was contemplating. I'm like, I was talking to the guy working there. I'm like, oh man, there's a director's cut. He goes, dude, it's 3.5 hours. Don't. He's like, you saw the original? I'm like, yeah. He goes, you don't need more.
Yeah, I like the movie, but I don't know that I would like 3.5 hours of it.
It's 3.5 hours of waiting for a girl to smile. I mean, that's literally what it is. It's just her just frowning. Oh, smile. There we go.
That's hilarious, man.
That's a tough girlfriend. Look at the shit you got to go through to get her to crack a smile.
So
she's a good girl, though.
You think like Get Out and Us? You think those are both elevated horror, or is that just timely horror? Like, or you know, like I don't know. Like again, I think that Get Out is like a landmark movie, and I think it's great, and both of them have really caused ripples in society. But I don't know, like when I watched Us, I like got a kick out of it when I watched it, and then like when I thought about it later, I was like, this movie was kind of silly. But a lot of other people hold it very high up, and I'm like, great, if that floats your boat, that's great. But I'm like, I don't know if that was elevated. Is it more? It was ambitious. It was creative. He was having fun with it, but I don't know if I put it like in the same category as some of the other things I consider elevated horror.
I haven't seen Us, but I think that Get Out would probably fall into that category. Just I think it has some of the things, you know, like I said, just originality, something unique, something, especially. I think that the elevated horror movies that we're talking about too. I think that there is a stance like I loved it or I hated it kind of thing, because either you get it or you don't. Like look at people who hate The Witch, and look at the ones that just absolutely love it.
You know what? That's a movie. I remember I took my mother in her 70s and my daughter, who was a teen at the time, to see that movie.
Your daughter hated it?
I'm like, this is gonna be rough. They both loved it. All three of us. I'm like, that's amazing. And when we talk about like, did you know half of what people were saying? I'm like, no, but Black Phillip was cool. You know,
yeah.
So like everyone had their thing they were hanging on to. But
I'll tell you what,
loved it, which shocked me.
The Witch and Hereditary, because when I saw Hereditary, I thought of The Witch at the end. I was like, oh, this has an ending that people are really going to love or hate. I loved the ending of The Witch, and I loved the ending of Hereditary. But I knew as soon as I talked about this movie with other people, some people were going to be like, I hated that. That was so stupid, whatever.
Yeah. Oh, Hereditary, when I walked out of that theater, there was more grumbling, and this is garbage. I can't, like, they were pissed at that movie. And I'm going, oh, man, they just took me away to Japan and Korea. Gave me this insane, like, crazy, like, Eastern, like, ending. I thought it was awesome. And I loved everyone's anger walking out of there.
Yeah, I personally think it's one of the best horror movies I've seen in the last 20 years.
Yeah,
I agree.
But going back to Get Out real quick, I think you're right in that there's like you got to watch Get Out like twice, because the second time you watch it, knowing what you know, you see so much more, and there's so much going on in that movie, and it does such a great job with the commentary that it has, but also the humor that it brings. Seeing that in the theater was great. The reaction was great. So that movie really is an intelligent movie that is also an extremely entertaining movie. And I think that part of that is there is an aspect of intelligence to the elevated horror that you don't get in like mainstream schlocky movies.
Yeah.
What, you telling me Sharktopus is not the equivalent of Hereditary? You know, it's funny. When I saw Get Out, I was watching. I go, and like midway through, I'm going, "Oh, it's the Stepford Wives." It's just told through a different lens. And then when I watched Us, and you haven't seen Us, you said, Chad.
Yeah.
This is one, and this helps if you're like a horror creator, and so you know how you make the sausage. When you start pulling the casing on that movie, just all the pork and everything just falls through your hands. You're like, oh, that movie sucked.
Really?
I'm one of the few people brave enough to say that movie made zero sense and had more plot holes big enough to stick a black hole in.
But it's got great performances and a lot of great scenes. So it's an entertaining movie that, you know, if you watch it and just kick back and enjoy it, there's a lot to like about it. But then, like I said, when we were talking about it, like, well, wait, that doesn't make any sense. And that it kind of feels like a Twilight Zone episode that was drawn out into a full-fledged movie.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, like, excuse me, Hunter was saying earlier that, I can't remember the words that you used, just like having that title kind of alarms you to, okay, I'm probably going to like this movie. So in that sense, having that label, I guess in that sense, it's not so bad, because then you're like, okay, this means I'm, and then my checklist of I'm not going to be spoon-fed. It might be ambiguous. It's going to be an original idea. Some people are going to hate it, meaning I'm going to love it. So,
Well, yeah, when you're a diehard contrarian, I look forward to those things. Like, I don't want to see the Deep Blue Sea that everyone's going to like. I want to see, like, It Follows. It Follows is one of the most divisive movies of the last maybe 30 years. Like,
you're not kidding, man.
That's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Me too.
I've met so many people who hate it, and I've actually reconsidered friendships over this. I'm like going, well, if you don't like it, well, how the hell can I like you? We don't agree on anything. It's so weird, but I've seen that movie about 15 times, and it only gets better.
Yeah, I love that movie.
And again, that's a high concept. It's a ghost possession movie via, sexually transmitted disease, and I just think it's brilliant. And I love the fact that they put this girl who's got a great group of protectors, and her sister and their friends who have no ability to protect her, no matter how much they want to. Yeah. So there's no safe space for you. And I thought that was probably the best part of that movie. And Jack, when we reviewed that, you brought up a good point. That scene in the pool, in the public pool, when they, line up all these things, they're going to electrocute it. It's like, yeah, it's the same. It's the stupid thing that teenagers would come up with, thinking, all right, we'll fix this. And it doesn't work. And it fits in line. Like, these are kids in the outskirts of Detroit, man. Probably they're lucky they got the education they got. They're not moving on to college. And sure, this is the shit they're going to come up with. And sure, it's not going to work. I love that movie.
I'll tell you what, the guy who did the Monster Man logo, our buddy Jerry, he hates that movie.
Right. I hate Jerry.
It's a polarizing movie. Like, there's people that and listen, I don't love all the elevated horror movies. There's some things that are considered that I'm like, it's just, like Mother. I think that was.
Jack and I have been fighting about Mother for a couple of years now.
Is that an elevated horror movie? I don't even know if that is a horror movie.
I haven't seen it yet. It's an allegory, isn't it, for religion or something?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is. It's amazing.
That's
Jack
what I hear.
Despises it. I love that movie.
So pretentious.
Can we say, like, elevated is fart sniffing? Is that what?
Smith sniffs its own farts.
Martin Mother is fart sniffing. I'll agree.
Look, it looks great. And there's great performances in it.
Any movie where Jennifer Lawrence is in literally every scene cannot be that bad.
Again, I don't think it's a horror movie at all.
I don't know. When she has the baby, that's pretty horrific.
It's a horrific scene in an art movie. I don't know.
Whatever.
You know,
again, we're going to fight over this.
William Peter Blatty and Friedkin, they did not market or see The Exorcist as being a horror film at all. And it's just so bizarre to think that, considering I think your average horror fan.
What did they think it was?
I don't know. Just a battle between good versus evil and a drama that was dark. I don't know. I saw them. There's a whole ton of interviews, pulled from special DVD editions and things like that. And they had a really good relationship. They were really tight. And they just didn't see it like that. They didn't really want it at market like that. That's why the poster looks the way it does.
So, I can kind of see that, because if you grew up in Catholic school and Catholic education, that just might be an educational video.
Well, I'll tell you what, though, a younger person who watches The Exorcist for the first time is probably going to be surprised at how much talking and not horror is in that movie, and they may be you use the word slow burn. When I use the word slow burn, it means it was a movie that didn't have a lot of action, but it kept my attention. Whereas if I don't use slow burn, then I usually say it's boring.
Go ahead.
So The Exorcist to me is kind of a slow burn and then huge punches to the mouth. But I'm wondering, is like Rosemary's Baby, that feels like a very elevated horror movie.
That's elevated horror.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
A great book by Ira Levin, and then you got Roman Polanski and some amazing performances. But again, that's over 2 hours of, and a lot of it is just build up, which I don't think that movie would even get out today. There's a lot of great movies I don't think would even make the cut anymore.
Yeah, probably not. Not enough action in them. They'd all be indie movies for sure with lower budgets. A recent movie that I would consider a perfect example of slow burn that I loved was The Beach House. And, the first, I think it was Brian Keene who tweeted recently that he had saw it and he didn't care for the first half. That was probably my favorite part, because I didn't know the synopsis going in. I didn't read anything. So all I knew was that it was a horror movie because it was on Shudder. So I just knew it was a horror movie. I didn't know where the horror was going to come from. And that whole movie, it reminded me a lot of The Invitation, where it's just stressful. You know something's going to happen, but you don't know from where or when. And so there's all this tension, and you're like, am I supposed to be trusting this person? Is this where the horror is going to come from? And when is it going to come? And both those movies, I think they're just in line with the same kind of slow burn tension for me anyway.
Right. I'm glad you brought up The Invitation. That's a movie that doesn't get enough mentions or love. And I absolutely adore the end of that movie.
Oh, yeah.
At the end of books and movies, it's always where I get so nervous when I'm getting towards the end. I'm like, oh, God, how are they going to crap this?
Yeah.
But, yeah, sometimes they stick the landing, and I love it when they do. In fact, I can deal with a crappy beginning. I'm more happier. I can deal with just a mess of a beginning if you can nail the ending.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't happen very often.
I think I thought The Beach House was good, but I think what happened was between Sea Fever and Color Out of Space and a couple of other movies that came out this year with like sort of similar themes or things going on in them, that it kept coloring my opinion of this, because I was going, well, Color Out of Space goes absolutely bananas, and Sea Fever really like packs more of a punch than this does. So I unfairly maybe I kept comparing it to stuff I'd seen just because it came out so recent. But I really enjoyed it. But for me, I felt like if it was a recipe, it could have used a little more pepper.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, because we're all trapped now. We're getting a lot of independent movies.
Yeah.
You know, we're not getting the usual Hollywood schlock fest that you get.
I haven't seen those two movies that you said, Jack, but I'm familiar with the Color Out of Space one, but not the other one. I don't think I've heard of that one.
Oh, Sea Fever is really good.
Yeah, it's an Irish movie. First of all, the Irish Film Board, I don't think they've put out a movie I haven't liked.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you're looking for like some real good independent movies that sometimes are monster movies, they explore the gamut. Man, they just nail it. It's always, the writing is so tight, and it's like these directors you've never heard of and actors you've never seen, and just always make me happy. And I'm not just saying that because I'm Irish. They're really good movies. Just like I like anything from Australia and New Zealand for whatever reason.
Yeah. So when you guys hear elevated horror, do you think it's a good thing? Like, oh, this elevator, or like, is this as a pro or a con?
I just, I guess my knee-jerk reaction when I first heard it was just, I don't like this. This is just, like what I said earlier, this is just a good, intelligent horror film that is not spoon-feeding anybody. And people expecting that probably aren't going to like it. But it's, I just don't, I think it's a sign of the times. I think because of the garbage that comes out is why we have to have something stupid like that title.
Which is funny because we've always had garbage. Good Lord. Go through Amazon Prime. You can see so many like shit movies in the 50s and 60s.
Sure. But I'm talking
now.
like mainstream, like theater. You know, when you go to the theater and it's just all you see is just the same crap rehashed. What? And yeah, it might be aesthetically pleasing. You know, I'm not a superhero movie guy, but I can understand why people that are into comics or you know, explosions and stuff like that are into that, because CGI has gotten so good.
Mm-hmm.
But
I think when you compare it to food, it's like sometimes I want to go to Five Guys and sometimes I want to go to a steakhouse, you know, and so sometimes like I want to watch Hereditary and sometimes I want to watch Return of the Living Dead, or I want to watch Basket Case, or you know what I mean. So there's there's different levels of food that I'm happy when I'm eating, and then there's some food I don't like. Some fancy restaurants I go to and I'm like, what? This was a ripoff. So I kind of equated there, but I think you touched on something. I think elevated horror is a term that is more applicable for non-horror fans in trying to describe, because they're either not interested in horror movies or what they've seen are so bad that when they actually run across one that's a good film, they're like, oh, that's elevated horror. When we're just like, no, that's just a horror movie that's like a quality product.
Yeah, I think elevated horror turns the table over on expectations for non-horror and horror fans. It's in a genre where we think we know all the tropes, and it just flips them.
So you think it broadens the audience?
It can or it can't. Like The Witch, I don't think has a broad audience. I think that's a pretty narrow track. But you get something like, I don't think Get Out is category. I think that's more of a mainstream movie, if you ask me. But it follows, I think, it's a broader audience.
Hello, Mommy is not a mainstream or
you mean
wide
Good Night,
audience.
Mommy?
Good Night, yeah, sorry. I'm thinking Cherry Bomb.
That's
Hello,
the sequel.
Mommy. Good Night, Mommy, and stuff like that. Like Raw, like these are like real niche audience kind of movies that.
Yeah, I think elevated horror almost guarantees you a narrow audience. But that's fine. I don't want everyone in my goddamn club. I want to sometimes just be with the people who I'm like, all right, that's right, we get it. Let's keep everyone else out of here and let's just enjoy this little gem.
Do you consider the color of water or the shape of water?
No, I don't. I think it was a combination of Hellboy and Creature from the Black Lagoon and Return to Blue Lagoon. I don't know what. Chad, I don't know. Like, I'm like the biggest fan of Creature from the Black Lagoon on the face of the earth. Me and Lyle Blackburn. So when I heard that movie was coming out and Guillermo del Toro's in it, I'm like, it's all I can think about. Like, I barely raised my children. I didn't pay for tuition. I was so excited. So then I see it and I'm like, I don't know. I just didn't connect with the friggin' movie for some reason. And I'm like, well, I've already seen this monster. He was like the fish friend in Hellboy. And now he's making love with I'm like, I don't know what's going on. So I don't know if that's elevated because it did win an Academy Award and everybody was seeing the movie. So I don't know if it was elevated in the fact that of the scope of how it looked. It looked amazing.
I don't even consider it. I consider it like maybe a monster movie, but not a horror movie. If you can do that.
Yeah, because it was something horrific other than what's his face, the guy, the human. Yeah, Mike Shannon.
What about some of Cronenberg stuff like Dead Ringers?
Oh.
I was dating my wife when she was a teenager, and we rented that movie. I remember she looked at me. She goes, "What the fuck did we just watch?"
Like if it were to come out today, what do you think that would be labeled that?
That would definitely be elevated horror. That would be on the IFC channel somewhere. God knows. Nobody would watch it. Nobody watched the original actually either, so I guess that
I just went on a little Cronenberg kick. I watched Rabid and Shivers. Was Shivers the one in the hotel, in the apartment building?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. I can't remember. Or is that Rabid? Rabid's the one with the armpit worm.
Yeah,
the armpit vampire.
Yeah.
And he did The Fly too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he did Videodrome, The Brood, Crash.
Yeah,
Videodrome was the first movie we ever rented in my family when we got a VCR. Can you imagine? You've got this top-loading VCR that has a remote that's connected, that stretches across the room. The whole family has gathered together to watch what Dad has rented. Videodrome. It's got Deborah Harry from Blondie. It's got to be good. We were kids. I was like, what the hell am I watching?
I just heard somebody talking trash about it on Facebook. I can't remember who it was, but John Bowden piped in because he loves that movie, and he was defending it, and he called he was talking about the highlights, and he said Deborah Harry naked and a tummy snatch. Thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, that movie scarred my sister is still scarred from stuff like that. She's never recovered.
Yeah, you can put Cronenberg in the elevated horror Hall of Fame, I think.
You can, because body horror it's out of the mainstream. It's not for everybody. And you got to have some thought behind that.
Almost everything you watch of his, there's a what the hell moment in it. So
there's some, even Crash, it's got it's got that thing on the leg and stuff, and some kind of mutation somehow.
Yeah. And The Brood I love. I
love that movie. Yeah.
Because he made that movie when he was getting divorced, and there was like a lot of what was going on with his wife in that movie.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. There's some you can Google some cool articles about what was going through his head when he made that movie. And they go, oh, that makes total sense. I get it, in a Cronenbergian way.
Yeah.
I do think The Witch though is probably like the movie that really brought the term elevated horror into kind of the mainstream.
More so than Babadook?
Oh, that's a good point.
Ooh, yeah.
I think so, because I think The Witch was a little more accessible. I think more people saw The Witch than the Babadook, but you're right. It could be maybe one was the opener and the other was the closer.
How did the Babadook become an LGBTQ hero?
I didn't know it was.
Oh, it is. Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge thing. I would turn this computer around at the giant gay pride flag that's hanging on my daughter's wall right now. So I hear this all the time. But yeah,
I'll tell you what.
The Babadook is like the new Marilyn Monroe.
I like that movie a lot. I think I might have thought it was the best movie of the year. And I kind of never want to watch it again. Like, it's a hard movie to get through.
Whereas The Witch,
I hated that kid.
Yeah.
Hated him. Oh my God.
And it's kind of but then that same filmmaker made The Nightingale. Did you see that?
The Nightingale was tremendous.
I haven't seen that. No.
Oh,
It's not a horror movie, so it's a period piece,
Mhm.
but it is tremendous. It is. If you're in a good mood, don't sit down and watch this. Like, watch it when you're already like your day is shit.
Yeah.
Like, all right, I'm going to turn this on because it can't get any worse.
it's got little horror elements to it.
What about The Lighthouse?
I would consider that elevated horror.
That's a question if you even consider that horror.
Well, I think if you can, I mean, it's got more horrifying moments in it, I think, than The Witch does.
Well, I think true horror is being locked anywhere with Willem Dafoe. So like that right
I
there.
love Willem Dafoe.
I love him too, but he
The
scares
Witch,
hell out
though,
of me.
has an actual witch and a devil, goat, and so there's much more traditional horror, whereas The Lighthouse is like Willem Dafoe farting and...
Getting
Well,
drunk.
to me, it's more about
mermaids.
to me, it's more about like them kind of going insane, losing their minds,
Yeah.
and whether it be from the elements and the isolation or drinking kerosene or whatever the heck they were drinking. I mean, that'll do it right there. All of that will make you see mermaids.
You know what? After I watch, I'm like, you know what? I don't think I want to watch A Lighthouse. That's off my list of things to do.
That's another movie I'm glad I watched, but I don't think I'm going to ever watch it again.
No, I won't. It was good, but yeah, I don't. The acting was great, and there were some cool moments.
I'll watch it again if I'm sick and the remote falls under the bed and I can't change the channel. I'll definitely watch it again. You know, Chad, there's something I wanted to ask you. Now, you wrote for Famous Monsters magazine.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Dude, I want to hear about this because growing up, this was like the magazine of my entire existence. And when I first signed with Sam Hain 10 years ago, they used to put full page ads in the back page with and when I would see my book on there, like I have those magazines in sealed plastic. Like that's like that was more important to me than the book itself. It's so weird.
Yeah.
How did you get that gig and what did you do with them?
I think it was I was trying to do everything I could at the time. I think I had gotten I lost an account at work. Not me, but I had an account and my place I worked for lost the whole account. So people were essentially being like temporarily laid off. So I was trying to do freelance stuff. And so I think I reached out to them and I believe I pitched an idea and they were down with it. And so I wrote the article and they loved it and they paid really well too.
Really?
Yeah. And then I wrote another one, got paid, and I was in the process of, I think, writing a third one. And then just out of nowhere, they switched editors and then just had a writing team. And so I was like locked out. So I kept trying to, go to other places. I mean, for sure, it was a dream come true for me, to have my name in there and have this whole article and see them like taking pictures and the format when it's done,
right?
And seeing all the pictures that they chose for my article and stuff, like 3 page articles each of them. But I thought, if I'm sure that I would have, if they wouldn't have switched editors like that all of a sudden, I'm sure I would have continued to been able to write. But yeah, they changed the whole format, and so I was bummed.
To get one article though, that's a huge feather in a big ass cap.
Yeah.
And now you've written for Rue Morgue, which that's my current favorite. It's been my favorite horror magazine for years now. I mean, because they do like horror book reviews too, but they cover everything and they do so well.
That was different though. That was more like a, I asked them and it was kind of a convoluted process. It was less of me pitching an idea and more of them pitching one to me and then me writing it. And they kind of I remember the guy kind of held my hand at the time, the first thing I wrote for them. It was on kaiju and the original first kaiju, which I can't even remember what it was called. It was interesting. I'm not into those types of movies, but it was really interesting to discover that the original like kaiju film doesn't even exist anymore.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it was destroyed in, I think it was Pearl Harbor.
I would have thought Godzilla was the original kaiju.
No, it was like a King Kong type movie.
Wow.
I thought I had it sitting right here, and maybe I don't, but shoot, I don't.
What's that Gargantua movie? Remember?
Oh,
War of the
Gargantuas. I just watched that a couple of months ago.
Sorry, guys.
That is an awesome ringtone.
Yeah, I that embarrasses me all the time. It scares the crap out of me. I've had it on there for a couple of years, and
that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
My ringtone is the Final Countdown.
Oh, Jesus Christ. You're a fan, you. I still make fun of my wife for loving Europe in the 80s. It's been like 30 years, and I'm like, I can't believe you like Europe. It'll just come out of nowhere some days.
The best ringtone I ever had was, remember when you had like the little electronic MIDI ones, electronic versions of songs as your ringtone?
Yeah.
I did ABBA, Take a Chance on Me. And it was great because then after my phone rang, inevitably somebody in the office a little while later was just going, "You change your mind."
Yeah.
I was like, gotcha.
You know what's scary? I've never had a special ringtone ever. I should maybe do that.
Oh, you got to do it.
I worked with a guy in our old job, Jack, but years after you had left. He had a ringtone for his wife with Steve Carell from The Office going, "Loud noises, loud noises." And I was like, "Who the hell is that?" He goes, "It's my wife." Seemed appropriate.
Yeah.
So, Chad, I mean, it was awesome having you on here, man. We're honored that you're watching our craziness on Final Guys.
Yeah.
And to have you on here is just tremendous, man. And
appreciate
like I said,
it.
You elevated the show. It wasn't as dumb as usual. Right, Jack?
Yeah, this episode made you think. And some people love it, and some people are going to hate it.
That's right, you sons of bitches. But seriously, you now have an open invitation to come on anytime, and maybe one day if like Tim doesn't show up on Final Guys, maybe we can have you on there.
Dude, I am there.
We need informed people, or people pick dumb movies we can just crap on all day long.
Yeah.
I don't think you'll do that though. I think you'll be the anti-Tim. You'll pick some movie, you'll be like, "Oh crap, we can't do anything with this except love it."
Just bring a thick skin. Bring a thick skin, as you know, we like to write each other a little bit.
Every writer has a thick skin. Every writer who works as a writer has a thick skin.
Yeah, you got to, man. No, I don't. I've got my, I guess, what you called guilty pleasures for sure, and that kind of thing doesn't bother me.
Wait, now I'm curious.
If somebody gets on me.
Is there a couple of movies? Is there a couple of movies that every October, like around Halloween, that they're like yearly traditions?
The guilty pleasure ones.
I mean, not necessarily. I mean, I'm a big Michael Myers fan, so I
can see behind you.
Do I?
You have a
drawing. Yeah. Yeah. I got a couple things in here. I wasn't sure. Yeah, but not really. I don't think that I just like to watch horror all the time, but around that time, it feels appropriate to watch Halloween, I guess. I don't always do it, but I try to.
You should join us in October. We do Horror-tober, and we try to watch a horror movie a day.
Really?
Yeah. So my
record is crazy.
My record is 50 or 51 in a month.
Wow.
But yeah, I will like wake up. I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna have time later. All right, I'll wake up at 4 a.m. and watch something before work. I'm like so dedicated. I'm dedicated to nothing more than that stupid thing. I don't know what it is.
I can't keep up with him.
But still, you come up with great stuff because you like all the old folky movies.
Lately, I've been just. You guys ever check out Tubi TV?
Oh yeah.
Man, they are loaded with some oldies, man, from the 80s that you just can't find anywhere else. Great stuff.
Coronavirus first hit, I went on a Corman kick for like 3 weeks on Tubi TV.
Yeah.
Everything get my hands on.
I went on a TJ Hooker run on Tubi TV. Awesome.
Hey, I do that too, man. I do that too. I'll see a show that's like, you know what? I never did watch that when I was a kid, and I'll turn it on. It'll be horrible, and I will love every minute of it.
We should do like a video of Chad Lutzke watching Mr. Belvedere season 1.
Okay, now you're pushing it. I don't know about
Tubi TV has the Family Channel Zorro from like the 90s that I was like, I used to watch. They used to be on when I got home from work, and I'm like, oh my god, I didn't think anybody else even knew the show existed, and Tubi TV's got it. Like,
by the way, I will say about Mr. Belvedere, there was a story that Gilbert Gottfried tells of the day that they were shooting Mr. Belvedere, and the guy who played Mr. Belvedere had to be rushed to the emergency room because he sat on his balls.
Oh my gosh! Seriously?
Yes.
Mr. Balbadier.
So that's why it might be worth it. You watch it, you go, oh, that's the dude that sat on his balls and had to go to the emergency room.
That's what I have to look forward to when I get older, I guess.
Yeah, we're all getting there.
Yeah.
Well, that feels like a good place to end.
There we go. Yeah, once we bring out the sitting on the balls, that's usually the signal. Chad, again, thank you for coming on, man. And like I said, we should have you on Final Guys. We're going to cross-pollinate.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it, man. Oops, there goes my dog's diving alarm.
Okay, thanks for joining us, and everybody else, we'll see you next time on Monster Man.
Monster Man.
Monster Man, Monster Man.